Hello everyone, I'm Felipe Hoffa from the Google Cloud Platform team, and today we're going to review the latest BigQuery news. Now we have streaming, and I'm here today with Aleem Mawani, the founder of Streak. Hello Aleem, how are you doing?
Thanks for having me.
I'm very happy to have you. You've been using BigQuery for a long time.
Yeah, about a year and a half now.
Yeah, and I know you met our PM in a conference, and you asked him for us to have streaming.
Yeah, that was like the first feature request I had from BigQuery. Is once I saw how powerful it was, I wanted to be able to throw single rows of data at it.
Yeah, so you really wanted the streaming, and now you have it.
Yeah.
But before we go to see how you are using it, what is Streak?
Sure.
Please tell us.
So Streak is, it lets you do business process software right inside of Gmail. And so things like sales processes, hiring, fundraising, deal flow, even stuff like bug tracking, we let you do that right inside of Gmail. And we do that by having a Chrome extension that injects our UI right inside of Gmail. That's Streak.
Oh, that's cool. And I also know that once you started using BigQuery, you did something similar to BigQuery?
Oh, yeah. So we also, we're fans of taking existing software and making it better, like we're doing with Streak, building on top of Gmail. And so for BigQuery, we wrote another extension that makes BigQuery better, and we call it the BigQuery Developer Tools. And we put that on the Chrome Web Store, and it basically adds a few bells and whistles to the BigQuery UI.
And it's available for free?
Yes. This is free. It's just for everyone to use. We open sourced it as well.
Oh, that's cool. So you will be showing us how...
Yeah, I'll show you a few examples of what it can do and how we built it.
Awesome. What do you use BigQuery for?
So we have, this is the reason we wanted streaming so much is because we use BigQuery for two main things, logging and event tracking. So application logging, basically all of our server logs from our AppEngine are pushed to BigQuery. So we use AppEngine as our server platform for Streak, and debugging errors, seeing the performance of our application. It's much better to view that log data in BigQuery than it is in the AppEngine log console.
Oh yes. Can you show me how you do that?
Sure.
Let's do a demo, please.
Sure. So the first query I want to show you guys is just a basic query that shows the number of errors that we have on our server broken down by the endpoint. And so the great part about using BigQuery to do log analysis is that you can write a full-on query and then group it, sort it, order it by whatever you want, as opposed to just doing regexes in the AppEngine log console. So to make this work, we take our AppEngine logs, and every minute or 2 minutes, we parse the last 2 minutes worth of logs. We split it up into different columns. So we extract different amounts of information, whether there's an error, the host, the endpoint, the latency, just all the relevant information, split it up into columns, and then put it into BigQuery. And so this first query that I'm showing you, we're basically taking all the logs that have errors, grouping them by the endpoint, and then sorting by how many errors there are. So if I run this query, you'll see that and these errors are sort of streamed right to BigQuery. So you'll see these are a bunch of different endpoints on our server, and then the number of errors that we've received on those endpoints, since this table started logging. Now, the good part is I can restrict this. I can add another where clause that says, in the last hour or the last 24 hours, and we could also use decorators as part of the streaming to make it even cheaper. So this is the kind of stuff that we do just at a high level to see, monitoring general application health.
That's awesome. So now you know what errors are happening today, in the last hour, wherever you want. What do you do next if you have an error?
Yeah, so if we have an error, then, so for example, if we've noticed an error that we've never seen before, or an endpoint that's failing higher than normal, we'll run another query that looks something like this one. Basically, this just says, show me all the details of the logs. Show me the full set of columns, because in this case we want to see the actual log entries themselves and not do any grouping. So in this case, I'll run this query, and the good part here is that it's just going to take a second to load. The good part here is that we can see a full application stack trace inside of BigQuery because we export the full log. We extract those columns, but we also export the full stack trace. So for example,
can you see the stack trace there?
Yeah, so for example, this first row here, we have the path, and the first line of the stack trace is right here. Now, BigQuery doesn't like multi-line text, so as part of the extension I mentioned earlier, we added this feature where you could click on the row number, and it would let you see multi-line text right inside of BigQuery. So
on the web UI.
Yes, in the web UI. Yes. So you can see here, this is like the full stack trace of the entire request, and then there's an error here. In this case, it happens to be a concurrent modification error. So like we can debug using BigQuery as opposed to some other tool.
Yeah, but you were telling me you are getting errors all the time. Like,
oh yeah,
it's part. But how do you know what is normal? What is?
I see. So one thing we do is we power our dashboards, our monitoring dashboards, and also dashboards in our office that show the error rates of our server over time. So that's another query, the number of errors by time. And what this does is just shows like a time series of errors. So you can see this query right here breaks down the number of errors by hour in the day, and not on a specific path, but just in general. And so if we see a spike, then we know to sort of take action. So we have a dashboard that has that ability, but we also, as part of the BigQuery extension again that we wrote, we can graph this kind of stuff right inside of BigQuery. So I don't know if you saw that, but we add a button here called the time series graph, and it takes whatever data is in this result table, and it makes a time series out of it. So right here we can see, like last night we had a ton of errors, and then they've sort of settled down, and again this morning we saw a few more. And so we monitor them on the dashboard, but also we can see the graph here.
Oh, that's so cool. Other than errors, performance is important.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So we want to make sure our application is fast for users, and so one way to do that is just by hand playing with the application, but another way is obviously measurement. And so what we do as in all of our endpoints is we log to our AppEngine logs how long certain operations took. So for example, our application queries a lot of data from the data store, and then it has a bunch of results, and then it wants to ship it down to the client. In order to do that, it has to serialize it to JSON. So that operation, we measure the time it takes to do that operation, and then we just output it to the logs. Now, once it's outputted to the logs, it ends up in BigQuery, and now we can query over it and do all sorts of stuff with it. So we can see, you can find mins, maxes, means, averages, all that kind of stuff. So in this case, what we're doing is the serialization time, we output it to the logs, but it's just in a plain text field. It's not in a column. So we're using regular expressions to extract it from one of the columns, convert it to an integer, and then run some analysis over it. So you'll see that the results in this case, there are a bunch of different endpoints here. First we show the number of times that endpoint was requested, but then the second one is how long on average it took to do that serialization. So right away we see 1400 milliseconds, crazy long amount of time, and then some are really short, 11 milliseconds, and then some on average are like really, really long. So what should we focus on next? What we really do is look at the number of hits times the mean to know the total time spent, and that's where we focus our efforts on performance optimization.
Yeah. So you don't want to focus on slow things, you want to focus on slow things that happen a lot.
Exactly.
That's cool. I also want to highlight what you're doing here, the ability to run a regular expression over a full table and transforming them to integers and then doing all the math.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons I like BigQuery so much.
Yeah. There's no other way we could have done that using the typical AppEngine logging system.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. Tell me, how many customers do you have?
So we have hundreds of thousands of users of Streak, and it's a lot of users, and so there's a lot of traffic, and so the streaming ingestion actually helps so much because we can just push all this data to BigQuery as it happens.
Yeah. To manage 100,000 users, it's not easy.
No.
You are using BigQuery to know what they're doing?
Yeah, so we use the second use case that we use BigQuery for is to understand what our users are doing in the application. And so literally every click, every page they go to, this is typical analytics stuff, but instead of putting the the event tracking data into something like Google Analytics or Mixpanel or some of these other services, we actually put it straight into BigQuery. And there's a few reasons. One is we can write arbitrary queries against our data. We're not limited to some UI that doesn't do what we want. And then also we can join those event tracking tables to other tables that we have in BigQuery, such as the logs, but also we have a mirror of our AppEngine data store in BigQuery as well. So we can do a join across that and see for users who meet this profile, what's their behavior? And so, or for users who live in this country, how do they perform?
Can you show me that?
Sure. So I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you a little bit.
Of,
yeah. I'll show you a little bit of a toy example. One thing we do is, because we're inside of Gmail, we also record events that Gmail users do. So like when they go to a conversation, or when they go to search, or when they go to a label, of course anonymously. And so this query I want to show you is how people use BigQuery, or how people use Gmail for people who live in Boston versus people who live in Miami. Do they use Gmail any differently? And so I just did a query here, and basically this is a very simple query. All it's doing is looking at all of our Gmail events. So whether they open an email, compose an email, go to search, whatever, for every hour of the day for the last 24 hours. And then broken out by Miami and Boston. And so here it is by hour. Actually, the graph button didn't work. Let me just refresh that. Sorry, just give me a second. So I'll run it again.
Let's see what comes. You're looking for people between Boston and Miami?
Yeah.
So they're in the same time zone?
Exactly. Same time zone, and we just want to see how their usage differs. And so I have the results here broken out by hour of the day, and I can use the time series graph that I showed you guys earlier. The red line is Boston, and the blue line is Miami. And so in this case, we can see that in Miami, people actually prefer working in the mornings much more. In general, it follows a pretty similar curve, but you'll notice that around 8 or 9 a.m., people in Miami actually work more then, or do more email than people in Boston, and that could be for various reasons. Maybe the way people commute in Boston is different, and so this kind of stuff helps us find different usage patterns of our users. This is a toy example, but we use it.
So if you want to call them, for example, when is the best time to call them.
Exactly.
Based on where they are, even if it's the same time zone.
Exactly.
Awesome.
Right now, we're just using the data to analyze our users, but eventually we can give the same data to our users to help them, be more effective in what they do.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
I have another question, because I know you can do this, and I love how you do it. BigQuery queries can get very complicated. That one is a very long one.
Yeah.
How do you manage to write them?
Yeah, so I want to show you another query that's really complicated. And basically what we did here is build a funnel. So if I could just show you our homepage. This is the homepage for Streak. This is how our users get started with Streak. And basically they come to our site and they see one big play button. And that play button basically takes them to watch various different videos based on what their use case is. So our goal is, a user comes to our site, they watch a video, and then they like it, and so they click this big orange install button. And so we want to know how many people are making it through that funnel, are people, and what the drop-off is at each stage.
You're optimizing your website to get the...
Exactly.
Once you get them here,
yeah.
What should you show them? What's the...
Exactly. What's the best way for them to end up installing Streak? And so we wrote this query that basically uses those events. So each one of those clicks on the website, whether they click on this or the install button or a video, each one of those clicks is an event that we create, and we just stream it right to BigQuery. So we have all these events inside of BigQuery. Now we have to write a query that actually does that analysis. And that query is actually non-trivial because it's kind of like a funnel. And so we can run the query, and it's kind of a pain to write. I mean, you can see how long it is here. It doesn't even fit on the screen. And so we wanted to make it easier to write funnels specifically. And so what we did was, so first of all, here's the results of the query, which is if you watched this video, then here's the percentage chance that you actually installed it. If you watch this video, then here's the percentage chance. So it's actually it's clear that if you watch this video, we want users to watch this video because they have a higher chance of installing. But this query is a pain to write. And so we did something else, which was we created a sort of mini syntax, a syntax that let us write funnels easier. So I can just walk you through it. The first line is funnel. So you're just telling us that, like, hey, you're going to be making a funnel query. You tell us what table you want to do this funnel over. And so in our case, it's the events table. And then you give us a column that specifies a session ID or some unique identifier in the table such that we can track the same user over time. You give us a few other columns. And then the interesting part is you just give us a comma-separated list of the event names you want. So in this case, it was like a user visited the homepage without the extension installed. The next event was they pressed the download button. The next event was the download was successful. And the next event was they logged in. And a new account was created. It was the final event. So that's our like sign-up funnel. And so we want to see how many people make it through that funnel. So instead of writing this like crazy nested query, we added a functionality to the BigQuery extension that we wrote, where you just specify it like this, and then you press the Expand Templates button. And now you can see it auto-generated this giant query for you to do that funnel. And so now I can just run the query instead of, and I didn't have to write this big monstrous thing. So this is sort of an alternative to making your own page that has your own interface and stuff like that. We just used BigQuery's interface, but added a little bit of functionality to it.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Oh, thank you very much, Aleem.
No problem.
I think we will leave it here now.
Great.
If people want to install the BigQuery extension.
Yeah, so the BigQuery extension you can get at in the Chrome Web Store. Just search for Streak Developer Tools. If you want to use Streak itself, it's great for bug tracking and product development. You can get that in the Chrome Web Store as well. Just search for Streak or go to streak.com.
And my last question is, how are you getting the AppEngine logs to BigQuery?
Oh, so we wrote an open source framework that pushes logs from AppEngine to BigQuery automatically, and you just have to install this one library. It's really easy, and that's open source. It's on GitHub. It's github/streakyc/mache, and I'm sure they'll put up the URL.
Yes, the URL will be here. Yes. Well, thank you very much, Aleem. Everybody, please check out Streak. It's a great product. The extensions they're writing.
And we're hiring.
And they're hiring, yes. It's a great time to be a developer.
Yeah,
so, you are based in San Francisco?
Based in San Francisco, and we love Google Cloud Platform. And so if you're into that, we're always hiring.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I'm Felipe Hoffa with Aleem Mawani, the founder of Streak.
Thanks.